One, two, 1, 2. Audio check. Audio check. 1, 2, 1, 2. What's good? Cyrus here, stuck in the middle. How's everybody doing? Got a topic, one topic today. It's going to be about culture, everybody. Nothing more important than listening to a 44-year-old dude who's completely out of touch talk about culture. I might not be able to talk about culture, but I might be able to talk about the importance of it. Maybe that I'll be able to touch on that. Thanks for joining. That's going to be one topic. This was spawned by one of my favorite YouTubers. Actually the first YouTuber. Let me know if the audio is okay. I got to test out my setup. I don't know when it's echoing, when it's not. One of my favorite YouTubers, Niko House. And many on the populist left, they don't value the importance of culture, in my opinion, my humble opinion. And I want to give them another perspective. And that's what's spawning this live. That's what it's about. Got my bag light in the way. What is going on? So that's what spawned this live. That's what I'm going to focus on. I have a thread on Twitter where I talked about this, and we'll get into it. Oh, I got the gear, got the Love America gear. This is, it's literally a free image I got online that they said you could commercialize. This the same heart that I use in my logo. I'm happy with how they came out. My wife threw a little shade on them. It's all good though, because she was like, she implied that they were corny, and she's right. She's right, but. What I told her is, I'm sorry to tell you, you married a corn ball. So if I'm going to come up with branding, if it's going to be on brand, it's going to have to be corny. So thank you for the feedback. Speaking of that, there might be some Tesla fans here. I've been so much into politics, I haven't gotten into the Tesla as much. Because even with Elon, when I was talking about Elon, it was about culture, media control. And the media control is culture in a way. Got the plaid MAGA. Oh, man, you should have heard my wife when she saw it. She was like, you got a MAGA shirt? She sounded like Nate the lawyer in the infamous clip where he talked about what Jussie Smollett was. He was like, MAGA? So, I do have a plaid MAGA. So they want to call Elon Musk MAGA. Or basically, they basically say he's a far right winger now. Rep it, plaid MAGA. If you don't know, plaid Model S is the highest model. But the culture discussion that I'm going to get into right now here. Let me take a look here. I'm going to bring up a thread. If you can comment, I want to make sure the audio's good. It's hard to bring up I got to set it up where I can listen to the live so I can listen to the audio myself. So I know I'm not muted, or I wouldn't be surprised I'm 5 minutes in. I would not be surprised if I was on mute the whole time. I know none of you would be either. But I'm going to get into the culture discussion here in a second. And I'm back. I was literally testing the feed just to hear the audio. I think sounds good. So let me bring up the tweet here, and let me bring into. I want to start in the middle of where I put this tweet up, this thread, with a level of respect due and provided, so that I want to make sure that this is the best I can, that this is out of respect. And the person who spawned this was Niko House. So let me go and start with that thread with Niko. Here's Niko. Real Niko House is that dude. When I started my channel, he is literally the first dude I subbed to. When I had YouTube before, but it was under a different screen name, I started a whole new name for Stuck in the Middle. And as far as that's the main YouTube I use now. The first person in the political realm that I subbed to their channel, I don't know how I forgot. It might have been on Twitter. I forgot how I found out about him. And at the time, I was blue-pilled, really, when I started this channel. And he was part of the process that got me red-pilled. You're to blame for a lot of this, Niko. Because I got into Niko House, then I got into Pasta Fiorella, who is in Russia right now. Wish her the best. It really does hurt to see. She's a great journalist. You know, she has opinions too and all that, but an amazing journalist. So there's not many amazing journalists out there. And to see her have to go, she didn't have to, but her skills valued more in Russia than the United States is disappointing on the countrywide, but wish her the best. But I found out about all of them through Niko House. One of the first things I found out through them was election integrity. I knew nothing, still not any expert to this day. I knew nothing about election integrity, nothing at all, until I started watching. It was Pasta and Fiorella, and Niko obviously talks about it too, but Pasta and them, they are experts in it, in that field. And then they started talking about what happened to Bernie. And that's how I started. You could just see the red pill process. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, this is how our elections are run? At 40, when I started, 43, 42 years old. Wow. It's been almost 2 years now. So he's that dude. I subbed to him, started learning about it. He's talked with Tulsi Gabbard a lot, Kim Iverson. That's how I got into Kim Iverson, was through him. I love Kim. She is so good. And then Jimmy Dore. You see, I came through the door of the populist left. Before I followed, I would say he's neutral, Tim Pool. I didn't even so I got in through this door of being red-pilled, actually through the populist left. And if you go back on the early parts of the channels, I was an AOC supporter. I was supporting her up until the Force the Vote. And then Jimmy opened up my eyes on Force the Vote. And then I was like, then that opened up my eyes on what's up with AOC and them. They're not real. And you just see I just kept going down the rabbit hole. Then I don't know how I got into Steven Crowder, but I got into Tim Pool first. Then I got into Steven Crowder and Luke Radowski, and then it's over. After you get into Luke Radowski, it's over after that. There's no turning back after you start following wearechange.org, and I subbed to him. But it all started through Niko House, through the populist left. So it's a good stuff. I probably should go through my Twitter timeline to make sure I have that all lined up right. But sub up to Niko House. You will not be disappointed. I'll show you his site here on YouTube. Part of the based left. So I kind of feel like this is I'm not gonna be going after Niko or anything like that. But if you listen to TV shows or First Take, the sports show back when Skip was on it, they would always butter people up. And I'm like, oh, they about to go after, like if they picked like LeBron, and they would start out like, LeBron is the greatest. He's so wonderful. Like, look at this. Look at all these rings. You'd be like, look out. They about to go after this man. They're just trying to couch it. So no, it's not going to be that nearly like that at all. But this is his site here. It's great. And then I got into a lot of these other channels through him too. So that's the story of how I got into Niko House. And Niko posted today something that you never know what's going to kind of motivate you. I mean, for me, I'm like, man, I did not wake up expecting to be motivated by this topic, but it really did. With everything going on right now. Niko House posted, just simple. That's it. That's all he did. Niko's probably like, bro, you're reading way too much into this right now. And just because he said I'm so over it doesn't mean he doesn't respect it or anything else. But this is what spawned it, okay? Just telling you what's happening. Niko House said, I'm so over the culture war. And I don't blame him. What do you mean by the culture war? It's all this stuff you see about, well, parents complaining about critical race theory and the populist left, they don't like these discussions. And I'm going to go through why, and I think it's because they don't fit. This is a discussion that's happening between the populist right and the corporate establishment. It is all out cultural warfare, period. Nothing physical, nothing kinetic, informational warfare. And it's really heads up right now with the populist right. That's why all of a sudden I have a plaid MAGA shirt. When I started the channel, I would never say that I would have a MAGA gear, much less produce it. Because it's the populist left versus the establishment, and the populist right versus the establishment, and the populist left is right now sitting out on the sidelines, and they are irrelevant. And that's why they don't like the culture war, because they don't want. It's the populist right versus the establishment. They don't like the establishment, but they don't want to align with the populist right. So I'm like, that. I would wish that you would at least align. And Niko and them are not bad. They're not, anti-MAGA, really, I don't think, from what I've heard from them. They're more like, what are we about, which I respect. But I need to see more alignment where interests converge. And then even better, if you want to be relevant, you have to create your own culture. That's the populist left. I don't see it. Skateboard dudes who used to be populist left or libertarian or just neutral, over since 2020 popped off, they started spray painting Black Lives Matter on things. All cops are bad on things. I mean, that's literally what AOC and them are saying, that are fake populist, is corporate narrative. Black Lives Matter is literally the narrative of Walmart and Amazon. You're not a rebel. I'm not saying you have to disagree. I'm not saying you have to disagree at all. I'm just saying you're not a rebel when you agree with them. Culture is everything. So Niko might agree with this because he only sent out a little tweet, okay? So I just want to reiterate. The problem that I would have, though, is I understand it's a marathon. It can be tiring. I'm tired of it. So I don't want to talk about critical race theory sometimes, or whatever the topic is. Now it's the drag and children's. That stuff is crazy. But that's the stuff that they don't want to get involved in. But even if you don't want to get involved with it, and I don't blame you, it's still everything. It's more important than legislation. It's more important than what's happening in DC. It's even more important than local politics, even though local politics is more important than what's happening in DC. Culture is everything. So winning this cultural battle is everything, period. If you don't understand that, I'm not talking about Niko anymore, because he would have to tell his side, because he's smarter than me. So there's no, that's not what I'm alleging here. But just in general, if you don't agree with this statement that culture is everything, famously, Andrew Breitbart said, politics is downstream from culture. If you don't agree with that statement, then you are losing. You don't understand what's happening. We're just not going to be on the same wavelength. It doesn't matter what your politics are. Culture, Andrew Breitbart was obviously right, became populist right. Steve Bannon learned a lot from him, worked with him a lot with the Breitbart website. Doesn't matter. If you're libertarian, populist left, Green Party, whatever else, culture is everything. It's more important than anything. It doesn't matter what your views are. We have to I think it's important to acknowledge that before we even continue. So activist Rudy, and I'm probably going to mess up the last name here, Dutske coined the approach of fighting the culture war as the long march through the institutions. I found out about him through Gramsci, the Marxist. They had strategy. They were very politically and very savvy, just like Karl Marx was. They understood marketing. And really, that's all, in my opinion, that's all socialism is. All socialism is a marketing tool to make a dictator look like the right option. So they were very good at it. Corporate interests are controlling culture, mostly through wokeism. There's other things too, but right now the hot cultural topic is wokeism. Wokeism is right now, wokeism equals whatever the corporate wants you to. Right now it's abortion. And not just the abortion argument, it's the way to go after it. You don't see many people on the left with the take, well, yeah, we want pro-choice, but is that really bad for it to be a battle you fight through the states? No, they're all taking the same approach as the corporate interests. The populist right is fighting through anti-wokeism. So it's kind of uniting the right in a way, because you see Daily Wire, they're not really a populist site, but they are in the populist battle. They are populist friendly. I think they're a corporate establishment type, but they're going against the establishment that you see in DC, because they're like, we have our views, but we're not going to force them on anyone. We're anti-wokeism. Matt Walsh does What is a Woman? That's an example of it. And that's an example of creating your own media, your own documentaries, your own avenue. A parallel economy is a part of this culture I'm talking about. What is the populist left doing? I think there's some good stuff. I've seen the libertarian types work with populist left on like the end the damn wars. There's other things too. But the populist left, when you look at libertarians, populist right, and establishment, they're way behind. One of the greatest political accomplishments I have ever seen is the de-wokeifying of an American institution. I don't think it's ever happened before. I've heard Comic Dave Smith say he doesn't know if it's ever happened before. Somebody tell me if you've ever seen anything on this scale where people came into an institution. I'm talking about the Libertarian Party, and they de-wokeified it. They came in, they got the rags, they got the Windex, they got the cleaner, and they said, we want all this bullish out of here. They cleaned it all up. I don't know if I've ever seen it before. I don't know if I've seen any. I don't know if I've seen it before at all. So it is. So what I'm saying is, if you see people come in through that system and de-wokeify it, famously, Jo Jorgensen tweeted. She said a staffer tweeted it. Famously, she tweeted, if you're not anti-racist, you're a racist. Basically, just like the definition of woke. And they took that over where that's going to be not a part of it. That's in the background somewhere. So anyone else that wants to affect culture and try to infiltrate a Democrat Party or anything like that, you should be using them as a blueprint. So they took over, this Mises Caucus took over the Libertarian Party, and I'm just now getting into it. I signed up, I'm a member of the Libertarian Party. I got to still do the Colorado stuff to sign up for the local state area, but looking forward to that. Before they even officially took it over, they were talking about it on Part of the Problem live from Reno. My wife's texting me. So this clip here was great. There's a couple clips I'm going to show, and this discussion of Part of the Problem, which is Dave Smith's show with Robert the Fire Bernstein, they focused on culture and culture and culture. They're playing the long game. These are really savvy people here. So you're going to hear Michael Heiss, you're going to hear Angela McArdle, both of them, all of them have been on Tim Pool's show. He's platformed all of them. Joe Rogan's platformed Dave Smith. Here's what they think here. Let me just make sure the audio is going to play right. They talked about culture a lot.
So that's kind of the bigger point. It's like we got to be working towards something. This is a long-term struggle. And we have to be working toward building and building and building. And when you do what Ron Paul did, look at us years later. We have all of this because of that. He did something that will last. That's the difference.
Just to give some context, it was 4.3 million votes. We peaked at 21,000 members, I think it was, which is still less than what we were when Harry Brown was running in 2000 or early 2000s. And there is no endearing Gary Johnson movement.
So he's talking about, okay, here's how these prior people have run the Libertarian Party. And what do we have to show for it after running? They're all out there trying to get votes. And then years later, we look at it down the road and we're like, do we have a bigger movement? Are we more culturally relevant? And they're like, no.
There's not even an endearing Rand Paul revolution.
Even Rand, the son of Ron, and nothing against Rand, it's not easy running. He wasn't able to create a movement. So they're like, even Rand couldn't do it.
Rand Paul revolution. There's only an endearing Ron Paul revolution within our movement because he understood that it is culture and ideas first. It's not actually politics.
Right. The reason you don't see more legislative gains is because you're not going to get that until you free people from their ideological prison first. That has to come first before you can get them to vote the right way, obviously. You've got to have them totally on board and embracing personal liberty.
So they're talking about setting culture. Ron Paul, if you don't know, ran for president, 2008, 2012, and it was a magical run. It was the libertarian version of Bernie. It was the libertarian version of MAGA. It was a libertarian version of the Tea Party type, or even better than that. The energy, the excitement, it was unbelievable. And I'm sure they probably are wondering, like, damn, if we would have known, we would have made sure that that momentum never died. But can't look back, no regrets. Looking forward, let's stoke that fire back up and set the culture where it goes on for generation after generation and it doesn't go out. They're playing the long game. So you wonder, people ask me, well, you talk about Comic Dave Smith. Are you really going to vote for him? Does he really have a chance? And I say, well, that's not even what I'm worried about. Yes, I might still vote for him. I voted for Ralph Nader, wrote in Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang's another one that was crowd surfing and brought culture. I never bought a politician stuff, and I bought a math hat. So Andrew Yang set that up. And then, he went off that momentum of culture. And now he's prominent, starting his own party. He's trying to keep that momentum going, even though I'll have to do another video on that. I'm not feeling some of the things that he's saying right, espousing now. But they're saying, hey, we're playing the long game. So they're almost telling you, like, we're not trying to just grab votes. We're trying to get a message out there and create a culture. So in 20 years, in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, this movement is bigger. And who knows what can happen after that. That's the power of culture. And they are full blown in the culture war. You have to be. If you're not in the culture war, what are you doing? Populist left? Because of their focus on culture, they were able to take over the Libertarian Party through the Mises identity. They branded this Mises caucus, and Michael Heiss is, he's probably, I don't know if they would be offended by this or not, but this is just my opinion. And it's a compliment to me, but he is the Steve Bannon type of the Mises caucus who planned it through. MAGA would have never happened without Steve Bannon, in my opinion. And this takeover would never have happened without Michael Heiss. He doesn't even, to me, take a lot of credit and seems really humble he's the one that really started the whole thing, even more than Comic Dave Smith. And very similar, I was going to compare Comic Dave Smith to Donald Trump. Now, I know he would be offended by that, but I'm talking about just as the vehicle to make this populist right thing, or in their case, this Rothbard type libertarian take over a party. Because of that, they have a movement that is orders of magnitude, to use a plaid MAGA term, orders of magnitude more relevant and powerful than anything the populist left. And again, maybe I have a blind spot. Let me know. I don't know what culture the populist left has. Where is the populist left culture? There's a dude that's doing it, but it's just one dude that I found, but I don't see a big movement. And that's why they started at the bottom, from the bottom on up. Michael Heiss responded to someone who was asking about, well, what about Justin Amash? If you don't know, Justin Amash is a politician, former, is he still in the House? No, he's not in the House anymore, is he? I forget. He's a libertarian. He served as the U.S. representative from Michigan, so he's not, from 2011 to 2021. So he was in the House, and he was originally a Republican. Then he joined the Libertarian Party, and that's why people are asking, well, he had a big name. He's already done it. They were kind of hinting at, well, why wouldn't Justin Amash be the right one to run for president under the Libertarian label? And Comic Dave Smith said, if somebody can do what I have a vision. If somebody can do that vision or convince me of a better vision, then they should run and I'll help them. He's not trying to just run to take people out politically, but here's what they said, that Michael Heiss said.
So what I would say is that Justin Amash represents, in my opinion, the best version of an overall failed strategy, which is vote.
It was so sad. He's not trying to be mean. He's doing straight face. He's not trying to rub anything in. They were not disrespectful to Justin Amash. Comic Dave Smith was fair. He said when he agreed where he disagreed, but that was savage though. We're not going to hide from the truth. That was savage.
So what I would say is that Justin Amash represents, in my opinion, the best version of an overall failed strategy, which is vote chasing.
He's the best version of a failure. Oh, Michael, why you do that, man?
So what I would say is that Justin Amash represents, in my opinion, the best version of an overall failed strategy, which is vote chasing. And this whole we're here to elect libertarians thing, there's a surface truth to that. We are a political party, and we do exist to try to elect people and all of that, but then it begs the question of...
I'm going to stop. Populist left. You need to talk to people like this. The impression that I get is that the populist left, they almost feel like, no, we're better. No, we don't need help. No, we won't need, just my impression. You got to talk to this dude. He is politically in touch with the pulse of people. He's a brilliant political strategist from what I've seen here from afar. You've got to talk to him. Like Jimmy Dores. I think they're open to working with people. I think they're open with working with Republicans, anyone. If Jimmy Dore runs, I don't even know what's going on with that. I thought he was running, but I haven't really looked into it. I hope he does, but I hope that he is humble enough to see that people have already kind of done some of this. So Jimmy Dore did this People's Party. He started a third party. What they are doing is a third party. It's the same as MAGA. MAGA is not Republican. It has nothing to do with Republicans. That's why there's this battle. That's why you hear Nancy Pelosi say, we need a strong Republican Party. What she's saying is, we need a Republican Party that's strong enough to squash MAGA. So there's different ways to do this. MAGA, Steve Bannon, they saw a weakness. They jumped in on the Republican Party, and they're in the process of trying to take it over. That's why you see, Steve Bannon arrested, Peter Navarro arrested, Eastman they confiscated his phone. They put all these people on this J6 list. They're trying to squash MAGA because they're an independent party. Just like when the Democrats see a Green Party on the ballot, they do everything possible to get them off the ballot. They're fine with Republicans on the ballot because it's just, we're the same team. Whoever wins, wins, but we're on the same squad. The Mises Caucus is a third party. They're not the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party is just a vehicle. They took it over. So for Populist Left, maybe it will be rallying around the People's Party. I don't know. Maybe it will be taking over the Democrat Party. But they got you on lock because what they did is they gave these people this label, the squad, and they're not populist in any way, shape, or form. You can't even name one piece of populist legislation they even successfully tried to push. They're not even consistently populist. They're voting for money to Ukraine. They're nonstop woke till they die. So you can either infiltrate they infiltrated. You can infiltrate or start your own. You need to listen to these guys.
So what I would say is that Justin Amash represents, in my opinion, the best version of an overall failed strategy, which is vote chasing. And this whole we're here to elect libertarians thing, there's a surface truth to that. We are a political party, and we do exist to try to elect people and all of that, but then it begs the question of, how do you do that? Is that a good in and of itself? Or do we have to change the culture, change the way people think, have more people thinking about these ideas, thinking about liberty before something like that is ever possible? When you go jump straight to, we're here to get people elected, it kind of presupposes all of that other stuff of like changing the culture. And I don't think that he necessarily sees this as a cultural battle first and foremost before it could ever manifest as a political battle. So this whole idea of vote chasing, I think
it's the same thing for the black identitarians that I talk with. I just talked with a black I would consider them populist left in a way. The ADOS black identitarians who they nonstop talk about reparations. And I told them, I was like, I'm not against y'all, but y'all have no power. There's no culture that you're building. You've got a niche culture, but your culture isn't like developing towards getting power. So how do you get reparations? You're skipping. You're trying to get people to vote for it. Nobody wants that. You haven't set a culture where that's what we want naturally, organically.
Is where we have gone wrong for the past 16 years. And Dave, I think, represents the opportunity to infect the culture in a way that we haven't seen since the Ron Paul revolution, and maybe even more than that.
Absolutely. Absolutely more than that. And Dave Smith is so humble after that. He said, hey, I'm not Ron Paul. I'm not as great, but I have more tools. I think that's what it is. It could be there's more tools. Like the internet, obviously, is a big tool. Niko House, again, on culture as a long-term play. All in the same kind of summit.
As for what's the long-term plan? Well, we keep harping on this idea that it's got to be a cultural movement before it could ever be a political movement. Well, where does culture actually organically really come from? It comes from the family up through the community. So if we are serious about ingratiating ourselves to the culture.
And you see, MAGA has that. MAGA is very big on family values, but it doesn't have to be family values, traditional values. But it does have to start with family stuff, nothing with politics.
So if we are serious about ingratiating ourselves to the culture, that's where we have to operate, is up in the community. That's where it will actually come from. So if we start creating change in the community at the local level, then we can start to scale and we can start to build trust, because trust is the actual currency that holds society together. It's in a lack of trust environment where
I'm going to play a clip of someone from the populist left who is affecting culture. Amazing. I've talked about him multiple times on the channel, Rome Bethea, and he's doing exactly what Michael Heiss is talking about right here. You need more of that on the populist left. I'm going to show you great branding, great energy. Love what he's doing. Rome Bethea is doing exactly what Michael Heiss is saying right here. Community, family, starting young, in the streets, figuratively in the streets.
In the community. That's where it will actually come from. So if we start creating change in the community at the local level, then we can start to scale and we can start to build trust, because trust is the actual currency that holds society together. It's in a lack of trust environment where we're divided by politics that we start to artificially hate each other. And that's what's happening, and that's the whole plan, is to not rely on ourselves, to rely on others, to rely on strongmen to destroy our enemies for us. So what we have to do is create...
That's why people think the government is God. I need you, government, to destroy MAGA. And that's all the J6 committee is about.
Enemies for us. So what we have to do is create our own culture, and that starts at the local level.
So you see how they took over. They just started their cultural takeover. What was this? Is it 5 years? Is it less than 5 years? So you see, you plant the seeds of culture, and they're probably, I don't know the exact years, but they're a few years in. So that 20 year of a generation, they've already started the clock. Populist left, you have not. Populist right, you have. And just like, why do you think the corporate politicians have a corporate left and a corporate right? Why do they need two parties to do the same thing? There's no real discernible difference between Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi. Mitch McConnell, I've always joked, is just a male Nancy Pelosi who doesn't have as good investment history, but he's doing all right. It's because there are people who resonate with a Mitch McConnell a little bit more than a Nancy Pelosi. There are people who resonate with AOC more than Chuck Grassley. There's people who resonate with different people more. So they're all on the same team. They put on a little bit of identity stuff for these single vote issues, and they funnel everybody into the corporate ideology. I always talk about, you've got Romney versus Obama. The corporate interest couldn't care less who won that battle. You're in the establishment. If you had like Jeb Bush was supposed to win in 2016 and Hillary Clinton, nobody cares from the corporate interest side other than, people who are in the Hillary camp or Jeb camp. They're all on the same team. No one cares fundamentally if Jeb Bush won in 2016 or Hillary Clinton. But they did care if a guy who was an outsider that they didn't really have full control over won, and his name was Trump. The populists left and right need that same type of dynamic. We need populists. Right now, so Nancy said, we need a strong Republican Party to help her squash MAGA. We need a strong populist left to help overturn and control and wipe out these corporate interests. We need the same thing on the ground level. If we're divided, they're united. How can they be united and we're not? We don't have to agree. You think they agree on everything? No, they're united on who the enemy is politically. Eric July is an example of this. I'm going to play a long clip here. It's going to be about 8 minutes, but his 8 minutes go by like way fast. He's really good. Eric July is an example of the libertarian. He's a Mises guy, supporter. Michael Malice is an example too. He set his own kind of culture of like, I'm a chaotic, like I'm a real life Joker from, Batman type thing. That's his image, but he's, he's a great writer and all that, but he's got a little flair to him. Eric D. July is also an example of this. He's a huge comic guy. Many people on the channel already know him, but just in case you don't, how do you not know Eric July if you're on this channel? But if you don't, If you don't, first of all, search him and sub to his channel. It's Young Rippa. I think it's Young Rippa 59 on YouTube. Just search Eric July. And wherever that is, Eric July, sub to it. He does hip hop. He does metal. But let's talk about his comics. He's a huge comics guy. All of that is culture. He talks about how his metal scene, I'm not a metal expert, but you know, the metal where they're yelling, he's great at it. And their scene got corrupted by Black Lives Matter. He's like, my band, we're not doing that. He's a huge comics guy as well. Corporate interests, as we know, bastardized the art form of drawing and short storytelling. It's not the Batman animated series. It's not the X-Men, the animated series that we grew up with anymore. It's all bastardized into some type of political agenda. It's not even the same thing. Same thing that happened with Star Wars. But this happened in his realm. And he's like, I'm going to launch my own comic book. And he talked about culture like, wait a second. I hope y'all realize why this is important.
Does that heart to heart, fellas and ladies, and theys and thems? Culture war. Let's speak on that real quick. Now, when I usually use this term, I use the term culture, or like we're in some sort of cultural war. I'm referring to something that is taking place whether you want it to be there or not. I'm going to tell you what influenced kind of this segment here in a little bit. But I don't want to be too vague, but everybody belongs in some sort of subculture. Right now, what we've seen in recent years particularly is that because one side has basically taken control of what is deemed as the acceptable ideological position that you can have publicly. In any given subculture, the authoritarian left pretty much has that control. If you don't believe me, just think about the fact that they can publicly take their authoritarian leftist positions and see virtue.
Let me reset that. I probably messed it up with the echo. Don't even realize it. I got to undo this audio thing. Let me bring it back.
Let's have a heart to heart, fellas and ladies, and theys and thems. Culture war. Let's speak on that real quick. Now, when I usually use this term, I use the term culture, or like we're in some sort of cultural war. I'm referring to something that is taking place whether you want it to be there or not. And I'll tell you what influenced kind of this segment here in a little bit. But I don't want to be too vague, but everybody belongs in some sort of subculture. Right now, what we've seen in recent years particularly is that because one side has basically taken control of what is deemed as the acceptable ideological position that you can have publicly. In any given subculture, the authoritarian left pretty much has that control. If you don't believe me, just think about the fact that they can publicly take their authoritarian leftist positions and see virtually no consequence to anything it is that they do. Meanwhile, people that value liberty don't have any sort of culture that they can call their own aside from their little pockets, right? So whether it be with sports, whether it be with entertainment, so your movies, your music, or anything like that, hell, people on the opposite side they don't have it. They don't even have the church anymore, right? They don't even have that. For the most part, NASCAR, you ain't even got that no more. Bubba Wallace, proved exactly that. You don't have control of anything. There's no cultural imprint that you guys have. So what people are now seeing is that because that side has been so emboldened, because they're cocky enough to understand that they now control everything. So what they've done, like what they've done with Gina Carano, what they did with her, they have no problem ostracizing. It's funny. People looked at gatekeeper like it was a bad thing, and then they took it over. Now they gatekeeping y'all up out of there. So God forbid that you have a different position and exist among them in their subculture. I say this as a guy that exists in metalcore. Trust me, they'll come for you. But that war, rather that conflict is existing whether you want it to exist or not.
Can you believe that? In metalcore? They got metalcore artists talking about Black Lives Matter. That's crazy. That's power.
Now, I hate to keep referring back to this and what we've seen with recent movies that have come out, but it's just a prime example of that, where the authoritarian left controls the conversation, right? And they don't reciprocate, which is the important thing to note. I know folks think that they can have the luxury of turning their mind off, right, and just enjoying, like, I guess, some sort of entertainment, for example. In a world where, I guess, let's say a more freer world where, liberty is valued and upheld, then, yeah, you're going to get a lot more of that. People finding ways to entertain each other or whatever and not really worrying about all of this other dumb shit, definitely in the political sphere. You'd get more of that. Unfortunately, you don't have that luxury right now.
So what he's talking about here is culture at its core is reaching people who don't care about politics. That's how I would define what I'm talking about with culture. So there is some overlap, of course, but that's the essence of it. And he's talking about reaching those people.
They're on the attack. They have not stopped, and they don't plan on stopping. However, what they do require of you is your money, your funding, and whatnot. And they can always depend on that if they shine, if their keys are just shiny enough. And again, I hate to keep referring back to like No Way Home or something like that movie came out and some people are you're overemphasizing or over exaggerating. No, I'm not. What that does is speak exactly to what it is that I'm talking about, because it's not like the left reciprocates with you. Do they go in your affairs or something?
What he's talking about is the movie came out and it wasn't too woke. And then everybody said, hey, I want to support it or go see it. And what he's saying is you're giving them ground in a culture war that they don't give you. So if you do that, you can't complain or act like you don't understand why you're losing.
That you, for the most part, control as a person that values liberty and then want to consume your shit? No. They don't warrant you such reciprocity. So you can't afford to simply ignore that, because you're basically walking right into that lion's den, no matter if you liked it or not. And this is the reality that a lot of people must accept. It's there whether you want it to be or not. That's what it is. What I advocate and what I have been talking about for the better part of 10 years, and to talk about how politics, this isn't my idea that's unique, but we talk about how culture is on the up, is basically, let's say, politics on the downstream, right? It's not generally the other way around. You change the culture, you change the politics.
It's never the other way around. Never. I mean, just think about the numbers. How many people, he's going to talk about that in a second, how many people know who their representatives are? What district they're in? They don't even know their mayor. Many more people know just basic culture stuff.
Politics by way of default. And for years and years, the non-leftists in America have seen things that were outside of, let's say, government per se, as things that were not important. They were always trivial. Who gives a shit what rappers think? Who cares what the actors or actresses think? Who cares about any of that stuff?
And that's my concern. I don't know if that's how Niko feels, but that's my concern about him and the populist left. Are they saying, like, who cares about Gina Carano? Why are you talking about Gina Carano or Amber Heard? I personally wasn't interested in the Amber Heard case, but you saw how that blew up and how important it is. And it affects things far more important than anything else. That's why they're attacking Nick Rekieta. Rekieta is creating his own culture on his channel. This dude is streaming like 8 hours straight. He's streaming like 12 hours a day and got 10,000 plus deep in his chat with jokes and hilarious. What about Salty Cracker? That's why they're going after these people, because they're becoming influential culturally, and that hurts the status quo, and that's more That's more damning than anything. That's more damning than any politician. Than you prop up Jimmy Dore or Dave Smith or whoever else. What Salty Cracker, Rekieta Law, what they're doing is more powerful than that.
Stupid. You still got these boomer cons who still make fun of people for playing video games. That's out of just completely disconnected that they are, because it's pointless, right? You should be, I don't know, in the woods chopping trees or some shit. But they thought of all that stuff as trivial instead of looking at the bigger picture. Like I've said, if we lived in a freer, like more prosperous nation, you'd have more of that. You wouldn't have less. You'd have more people caring about what subcultures they are into, not less. It is a powerful driver of the direction that a geographical area is going to go. The difference between the authoritarian left and everybody else is that the authoritarian left realized how important that it was. While y'all thought it was trivial, while y'all thought it was stupid, they went out there and they were like, we get control of this. We get control of future generations. We don't need the ideas on our side. We don't have to be the smartest people in the room. We don't have to do any of that. We just have to get control of these subcultures that so many people belong to and they care more about than, let's say, who their representative is, be it state or federally. You ask your average person, they have no idea. They know who the fuck Beyonce is, though. They can tell you what happened in the latest Marvel movie. They can do that. But average person can't tell you shit about what's now. Again, some people look at that. Well, that's a bad. It doesn't matter how you feel about that. The reality is that there's a reason why those guys can go pimp out, let's say, those representatives, and whether you think they're the dumbest people on earth doesn't matter, because they are of influence and they do influence future generations. I would encourage you to go look at, for example, polls of like people that are like my generation and younger, where they're trending in terms of their voting habits, and it ain't fucking good.
I just looked at that, chatted with somebody about that the other day. Gen Z, they are defined, in my eyes, as a godless generation. Don't even believe in it. They almost feel like belief in God is something that is toxic. They don't believe in nationalism. But what they do believe is in the power of the government. They love when the government has power. They actually think when the government has power, when they help the government get power, they actually think they're rebelling against the government. I mean, just look at Tifa, the group. They're like a strong arm of the government. 90% of the time when they protest, it's always on the side of institutionalized power against common people. This is, if we don't start changing that, you're not going to win anything. You're just going to keep talking politics, and nothing's going to be accomplished.
It ain't good at all. But there's a reason for that. It's because for years, folks that value liberty neglected all of that stuff that I was just mentioning in terms of those subcultures, right? So where you think that you could turn your mind off and just consume, you cannot afford to do that. And you have to be more mindful if the tide is going to change. That war is existing whether you want to be a part of it or not. Whether you think, oh, not everybody cares about.
Most people aren't actively in the war, this culture war. It's the small percentage of people who are activated on either side, and you're in it if you want to be or not, but there's only a few people who are actively participating in trying to control the territory.
You don't have the, I get it that you might not, and you want to just turn your mind off, but that's not how they operate. And again, that would only make sense if they had some sort of reciprocity. They don't. You see what they try to do in the event that you come up with your alternatives, they delegitimize it. Oh, it's a demotion now that, let's say, there's a movie coming out by way of Gina Carano working with Daily Wire. That's a they want to delegitimize everything it is that you do, because they understand in the event that folks like ourselves wake up and just say, you know what? No, All right, I bet you got control of all of this shit that it is that we knew and love. I concede that we're going to start creating our own stuff. And we're going to be more mindful of putting money in your pockets instead of just mindlessly consuming some of you, the glitz and the glamour. You put stuff in our faces. Now our eyes got little twinkles on it like in the cartoons or some shit. And then we just forget everything it is that you did to us and everything it is that you said you were going to do. But the important thing to note is there's no reciprocity there. The left does not afford you. The authoritarian left does not afford you such reciprocity. They don't care about that. They do not go to your products and consume your shit. They don't do that. You, and they depend on you, fund them.
Excellent. Eric July. That's it in a nutshell. Perfect representation of what I'm talking about. You look at guys that I talk about a lot. Why do I talk about Nick Fuentes so much? Part of the reason why I'm talking about him so much is because he is affecting culture. He's not just some dude. I called him he's just some nerd. He's a debate nerd. He's a high school debate nerd. That's all he is. But it's got great marketing. Whether you agree with his philosophies or not is not relevant to this discussion. He affects culture. He went to CPAC. They banned him from CPAC. He's like, I'm a boss. I know how to market. I've got people who roll with me. I do AFPAC now. And if I had to choose between CPAC or AFPAC, I wouldn't hesitate a nanosecond. I would go to AFPAC. Because they're more real there. Not that I agree with everything. Of course, I don't agree with everything in CPAC or any of these people. But that's the power of culture. And they see that, and he's affecting young people. That's why Marjorie Taylor Greene went there to speak. She said that. She was like, I want to talk to the young, this young generation. Bryson Gray. They understand the importance of culture. Nick Fuentes was he just got removed from it, but he was on a no-fly list. They didn't tell him when they put him on. They didn't tell him why they put him on. He never broke a law. He's just a 20-something-year-old debate nerd dude, and they put him on the no-fly list like he was the worst terrorist that you could ever imagine. No weapons, no threats, none of that kind of stuff. Just his philosophy and his effect on culture were so strong, they're like, we got to hamper him a little bit, put him on a no-fly list, let's get some stuff going, so he has to spend resources on lawyers. They tried to do that with Bryson Gray. I think Bryson Gray is like, I'm not hiring a lawyer. I'm not sure, but from what my understanding was, he was like, I'm just not participating. I don't know what happened with that, but obviously he's still doing videos and stuff. He was on the J6 committee hit list. The same committee that's doing primetime stuff, the one that did the surprise announcement or whatever today. He was on their hit list. He doesn't he talks politics, but he's a hip hop artist. That's all he is. He's a Christian hip hop artist. Growing up a Christian hip hop artist, they were treated like second-class citizens within hip hop. Now he's probably one of the most influential. He's the one getting banned, not Tom McDonald. I love Tom McDonald, don't get me wrong, and he's a part of populist right culture, but they don't ban him. He's not. Bryson Gray is a different level of cultural impact than Tom McDonald is. That's why Tom McDonald's not banned. Now Bryson could be a little bit smarter with his moves too, but I think generally it's because of the impact he has. His stuff goes viral on TikTok and viral the Let's Go Brandon stuff and all this stuff. He came up with the Kyle song. Tom McDonald's not doing that. Bryson Gray's hitting a little bit too close to home. Never broke a law. He's not a politician. All he does is rap and does his little YouTube channel. And they put him on the J6 committee hit list because of culture. These guys are dangerous culturally to the status quo and the cultural war. What about Strzok? Does he go by Strzok? It says Straka, but I think he always says Strzok. Brandon Strzok. The dude wouldn't bust a grape in a food fight. I mean, this dude couldn't hurt an ant. But they hemmed him up like he was Hannibal Lecter. too culturally powerful. Walk away. He's actually getting people to walk away from the Democratic establishment and Republican establishment. That's too dangerous to be effective at it. And you look at the J6 list, there are more people on there because of their cultural impact. When you become that influential, you're dangerous. That's why Steve Bannon is enemy of the state #1. He's a culture guy. His culture is not like hip hop, obviously, or anything like that. It's more like culture of family values, religious values, and local politic values. He's too smart, just like Niko House. And the libertarian guys, say a prayer for them every night in their journey and their fight, because when you get to where they are and they're becoming more and more powerful or more and more influential, the bullseye gets bigger. They get on the radar. You don't have to be MAGA or a libertarian to follow this playbook. Copy the strategy, tweak it as needed. I don't think they would mind. It doesn't matter if they do or not. It's not copywritten. No need to reinvent the wheel, populist left. Who's on that level to be targeted by the J6 committee on the populist left? Nobody. Maybe Jimmy Dore, but I think he's just more political. He's not culturally influential enough. They need to, the populist left needs to take a hard look in the mirror. They are politically lost right now. They're in no man's land. Like I said before, they try to be anti-establishment, but then they want to also be anti-MAGA. So where do you fit? And you haven't defined where you fit. You have no culture or established morals or something of your own, and you're not playing the long game. What would it look like for the populist left to affect culture? I don't know. I'm not the greatest marketer or culture guy out there. When you get to a certain age, you're out of the culture stuff. I'm over 40. I'm out of the culture stuff. I can talk about it on this level, but I don't know what the young kids resonate with now. A lot of them resonate with the LGBTQ identity, that you see the power and Black Lives Matter. Between those two, you got pretty much a whole high school. And that's not populist left. So how do you do that? Unholy Rome Bethea, is the guy I know. I don't follow everybody. Maybe there's more out there, but he's the one that I know. He's gone all in on this hammer and sickle branding. It's great stuff. I'm not going to get off on a tangent. I know everybody on the channel is not going to think this is great stuff. I have a thread. In this thread on Twitter, follow me on Twitter, search on these terms. I do another thread where I talk about why this is great. It's just branding. It's just the cover of the book. Read the book. So it turned me off. It was off-putting at first, but I saw what he was doing. I'm a substance guy, just like MAGA. MAGA kind of turned me off at first. I was like, do you really want to make America back like it was in the 50s? Or do you want that for that message for, because everybody in the country wasn't doing well. Obviously, you can do race in there too. But I looked at the substance. So that's his branding. He's got the flag on his garage. It's memorable. It stands out. Here's the side note. I did a whole nother thread. I'm not going to get off topic on that, why I said it's great. And Rome Bethea is out in the streets. Most recently, I saw him talking about giving free haircuts. This bruh's in the street giving free haircuts. I guarantee, I've never seen that before in my life. I guarantee you, every person that came out for a free haircut from Rome Bethea, I would bet everything I own, they will never forget that for the rest of their life. That's how impactful that is. Much respect. That is an example of brilliant populist left affecting culture. You don't have the arts anymore. You don't have hip hop anymore. These hip hop artists are spewing literally corporate talking points. So he said he had a great day cutting up this guy. He said, he's like, I know how to cut up Korean hair too. Special stuff right there. So I went through this before. Real Niko House. I talked about how he's a part of the real populist left, and he said, I'm over the culture war. That's why it spawned this whole video and thread. And I said, I get it. The culture war is in part a propaganda war. But just because something's propaganda does not mean it's false. It does not mean it's bad. There is fluff, and it can seem unimportant. But like Eric July broke down, it's more important than anything. There's no war ever that I've ever seen that's been won without propaganda. I mean, you don't even play sports without propaganda. Every coach does. You ever play sports and you're down, maybe you're playing football and you're down 20 in the fourth quarter, and the coach is like, your ass better not give up. There's a chance you could get a fumble, return it back, and win. That's propaganda. That's fine. That's not bad. It's a tool that must be used and respected. The populist left in our country is irrelevant. It doesn't excite me to say that. They have no significant cultural impact and no political impact at the federal level. They have no legit representation anywhere that I see, not much. I always say, who's a real populist left in D.C.? Katie Porter, maybe? That's the best you got? She voted for Ukraine money. You don't have one person that didn't even vote for the Ukraine money, even when they already had the votes. They couldn't even fake it. They already had plenty of votes. They couldn't even say, hey, you guys are the populist ones. We got the votes anyway. Just go ahead and stay fake populist. No, they didn't even do that. They can't even fake a vote for you. The populist left has no impact because they have no culture. Marjorie Taylor Greene is coming at AOC talking about Julian Assange. She's attacking the squad, flanking them from the left. You have nobody there. It's time to just completely scrap that. That group that you call the squad is complete nonsense. And they're all co-opted to align with the corporate agenda, woke critical theory ideology. Even unholy Rome, who I just praised, Rome Bethea, affecting culture in a great way. He's great. But then in this ad, I believe he mentions Black Lives Matter. Let me play this, only 30 seconds here.
Death to capitalism, death to everything that brought us here, that pushed us here and pushed us apart. So I really mean that. And even if certain people don't see it in their heart, it's probably in their best to invest in those futures, because you see that this message and our voices isn't dying down, even through the killing of the Black Lives Matter movements. They cannot kill what we have made. They cannot kill what we have became. They can't stop it, and they know it.
The brand, it's so good, Rome. It's so good. This is what the left needs. But then you put in Black Lives Matter? Bro, that's what Walmart, Nike, Amazon are saying. So if you want to do the identity, and I don't think you're going to have a left movement without identity in it. That's just how they view the world. I think we can still work with people like Rome, Niko, all of them, because they're based in truth. So I can work with you even if you have identity first, if you're based in truth. But then it's so good. Look at the imagery to see a black person with the old Soviet Union flag is not something you see every day. In fact, I don't know if I've ever seen it, and you won't forget it. It's memorable, charisma. Look how he's got his style. Niko's got great style too. He's great charisma too. Niko, you should be harping on culture with your style and charisma. I've already talked about that on when he was on the Better Discourse. The charisma, he stole the stage. He's a star. If I was CNN, I would be looking at Niko House, Rome Bethea, hiring them to do some type of show. See, if I ran CNN Plus, I would be going to Niko House, Fiorella, Rome Bethea, Kim Iverson, Jimmy Dore, and I would have been like, y'all are CNN Plus. Boom, that thing would have blown up. I mean, their goal wasn't to blow it up, to blow up and actually do well. It's just another corporate shill thing. But imagine if you took those people and put them on CNN Plus. Oh, even the populist right would love that. Oh, it would be so good. But great branding there. But why you put in Black Lives Matter? You ruined it.
In their best to invest in those futures, because you see that this this message and our voices isn't dying down, even through the killing of the Black Lives Matter movements. They cannot kill what we have made.
What is he talking about, the killing of the Black Lives Matter movement? I don't even know what he's referring to there. You just can't use that phrase, man. That phrase has been co-opted. It's trash. I know he's not talking about the global network because I've seen him criticize that. But why use branding that associates with that at all? Do not ever use the term Black Lives Matter because it makes you lost in a corporate nonsense. You're now, I know he doesn't mean it this way, but now you fit underneath Nancy Pelosi in the kente cloth. That's where you're at. You've got to separate from that. If you're going to do identity, you can't put it with Black Lives Matter. They co-opted that. So even when Rome does it, there's criticism there. But look at movies. We've talked about that. Eric July did. Media, movies, video games, fashion. They've infiltrated all of them. The video games are woke. The movies are woke. Fashion is woke. I mean, I watch these fashion shows sometimes with my wife. They're pretty good. And they're talking about marginalized communities. And I'm like, you're just making a damn dress. What are you talking about? Moral values, you don't have any. What are the moral values of the populist left? You could say anti-war. There's no really family values. There's no real religious. So maybe, I don't know. I'm not populist left, so I don't know. Tell me. There's no strong development of culture in any of these areas that doesn't align with these corporate BLM, Ukraine, J6, identity politics. I.e., if your take on the populist left on abortion is the exact same as Nancy Pelosi, what are you bringing to the table? I don't need it. You could go to any celebrity for that. You're getting lost in the shuffle. And for me, what would it sound like? To me, it's like, really go to the state level and affect local politics there. Nancy Pelosi and them want you to attack the Supreme Court because they want control of the Supreme Court. They want control at the federal level. You don't have a different take than Nancy Pelosi on it? I'm not saying you have to always disagree with these politicians, but damn, if you don't have significant differences, if I can't tell you apart in many avenues, your identity can't be just, I agree with Nancy Pelosi, but I don't think she's real. See, the populist right is like Nancy Pelosi and her whole ideology is gunk. The populist left, they kind of say, well, we agree with Nancy Pelosi on a lot of things, what she says, but we don't think she's real about it. It's hard to build an identity on that. You get lost in the shuffle. Help me if I'm missing anything, any blind spots. I'm going to end with a couple takes on Dave Smith. Fearless. One of the things that he's doing, if you don't know Dave Smith, he's probably going to be the president. I want him to be the presidential candidate for 2024 for the Libertarian Party. And he's in this comedic group called the Legion of Skanks. They are fearless. This is culture right here. Agree or not, you're just having fun.
So there it was, chitlins falling all out that freezer.
You know it wasn't in that freezer. Job application, I'll tell you that much.
So look, this Detroit mother was so upset about
living in Detroit.
No, about the Roe v. Wade decision. This is a true story. She was so upset that she actually killed her child and hid the body in the freezer, Bobby, right?
What? No.
What is this story? I swear to God.
Wow, that is
true.
Oh, that's annoying because then when you open it, it falls out with the chicken and stuff. Don't you hate that?
Oh, and you know she had chicken too, you racist.
I didn't even see. I wasn't looking.
Wow.
Kim.
No, please.
They have fun, man, and that's culture. And so when you look at it, this is a great question. That's why I want to play that clip to set up this question from this person. This person said, if you're the presidential candidate, basically she wanted him to be, comic Dave Smith, how are you going to win over suburban soccer moms?
Okay, Dave, I got a hardball for you here. You got a room of fans, and I think we've established that this group of people is really asking when, not if, you're going to run for president in 2024. And if we can see that happen, what I want to know is, how are we going to get the soccer moms of America to vote for 1/3 Legion of Skanks.
He was like, okay.
Well,
Shots.
oh, geez.
He had to take a drink. Good question. Great answer.
I mean, look, I'll say this. It's not at all that I don't want to try to appeal to soccer moms. And maybe I'm going to, you know, as I'm become more of the age of being a soccer dad, that I will be able to, you know, but the first thing I'm going to say, and again, I really hope the comment that I just made before about the boomer generation isn't like taken the wrong way. I'm really not making there are exceptions to this rule. I'm just noticing a pattern.
Dave, you're closer to that age than you think. My kid's 3. He's about to start soccer soon. You're pretty soon. You're almost there, Dave.
That's all. There's many people who don't fall into that. But I will say this, that in the spirit of what we were saying before of trying to build a movement and a revolution, my major priority are young people. That is what I'm trying, this is what's going to lead to the next generation being a more free generation. My goal here, the reason why I fucking, honestly, I've been a libertarian since 2008. 2009, really. I was introduced in 2007 and kind of was converted over that time. And I loved these ideas and completely believed in it. And I care about my own freedom and I want to be free. The reason why I'm really active and really care about this shit is because I got 2 little kids and I'm genuinely scared about the future of this country for them. My priority is to leave behind something good for them. That's what I care about. So my number one priority is to wake up an army of young people.
Word. That's why I started this channel. I thought it was going to be more of a Tesla channel and talk more Tesla type of stuff. But no, I got 2 kids. Got to plant those seeds right now. He said, I want to create an army of young people who value nothing more than liberty. The Freak says, this guy, president, too young. And I'm sorry if people are arriving late. I'm about to be out here. I'm wrapping up here. But go back if you can. I hope I didn't have audio issues too bad. Go back if you can. What he's saying is, don't worry about me trying to get votes. Don't worry about that. I'm on the campaign tour. He's going to try and get votes, but he's on the campaign tour to spread these ideas of liberty and to affect culture. That has to happen first. You're not going to be able to break through this barrage of misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, and propaganda and culture wars unless you affect the culture first. That's the whole point of this video. So yeah, I could still vote for him, but it's really more than that right now. It's all good. I'll leave this one up. I won't make this one private. So if you want to go back and listen to, but it's all about culture. I'm about to be out here in a second. And I didn't really promote it a lot. Just went prop up. Thanks for stopping by. My last piece is for the kids. This generation shift, it can take 20 years. A generation is about, historians look at it, I think, about 20 years. So I'm 44 now. The seeds that I plant now, they're not going to become big trees until I'm 64. It's a long-term game. That's the power of culture, and that's what the establishment is playing with MAGA. They're saying, thanks for the super chat, the Freak. What they're saying is we can affect culture, and within 5, 10, 15, 20 years, MAGA won't exist. Because go to any high school in the country right now, even in rural areas, and their identities are Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ, which there's nothing wrong with that. I'm black, obviously. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But those identities are being used against MAGA to affect culture. When you play video games, it's supposed to be woke. It's supposed to be anti-MAGA. When you listen to hip-hop, you can't listen to Bryson Gray. When you watch movies, you can't go to Daily Wire. None of those kids are going to be MAGA when they grow up. They think it's rebellious to really support these identities that are controlled by corporate interests. So for anybody out there, culture is that important. Let me know what you think. Thanks for stopping by. Take care.